Hey, what's happening? This is Uncle J here. I can be speaking to you about anything in the world, but today I'm going to be speaking to you about UFC 134. I'm basically going to be looking at the main card, basically the three fights on the main card. But before I get into that, guys, check out a short film I made. It's an action comedy. I'm in it, so you see me doing some martial arts moves, but there's a message behind it. It's called Battling Temptations. This is the link that's coming across the screen. I've also put the link below, so you literally just have to click on it and it will take you to the movie. The movie itself is about 20 minutes. So when you go onto the playlist, you're going to see like 44 minutes. Basically, the film itself is about 23 minutes. Then about 21 minutes is just about bloopers and like behind the scenes stuff. So just all those people that say, 44 minutes is long. No, it's actually 20 minutes. Anyway, let's get started. First fight I'm going to talk about is going to be Nogueira, Nogueira, Big Nog, versus Brendan Sharp. This is a very interesting matchup because Brendan Sharp is not a Cain Velasquez, he's not a Junior Dos Santos, but he's a pretty decent heavyweight. He has good stand-up, he has good wrestling in the context of MMA, and he has submissions. His submission moves are good. And he's one of those fighters that, on paper, he's not the best heavyweight in the world, but he has the tools to actually fight any heavyweight in the world. So on any given day, with a little bit of luck, he could actually beat anyone. I know people are going to say, yeah, but if Roy Nelson knocked him out. Yeah, but Roy Nelson can knock anyone out if you get past the holes in his game. So it's a very, very interesting matchup in the context that Brendan Sharp has a lot of potential and he's dangerous for anyone. I don't care who you are, you can't have Brendan Sharp across the cage from me and just think, I'm just gonna walk through him. Minotauro Nogueira. This guy is very, very dangerous. I mean, he's been Pride champion, he's been UFC champion, and there's a reason for that. His stand-up is dangerous, his jiu-jitsu skills is dangerous. But of late, he's not been looking like the Big Nog of old. I mean, and when I say of late, I'm talking like in the past 2 years. I mean, starting from when Frank Mir just made him look silly, and that's been attributed to injuries, and on top of that, he hasn't been that active in recent years, and dude is getting older. So Nogueira is like, definitely, if you brought Nogueira in his prime, he would decimate Brendan Sharp. However, I have to take into consideration where he's been off for a long time. He has been facing a lot of injuries. He is getting older, and he hasn't been looking good basically in his last couple of fights. So because of that, I'm gonna have to go with Brendan Sharp. I think Brendan Sharp is gonna win by knockout. Actually, I don't even think it's gonna go to decision. But having saying that, there's part of me that thinks that maybe he's gotten over his injuries. The time off has given him time to recuperate. The fact that he has such good training partners, and the fact that it's going to be Brazil, there is a chance that Nogueira could, feed off all that and destroy Brendan Sharp. But from a logical standpoint, I have to go with Brendan Sharp. Next fight, Mauricio Shogun Hua versus Forrest Griffin. This is a very, 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 very interesting match. Let's start with Forrest Griffin. He has everything. He has, good enough wrestling, high level jiu-jitsu guy, nice stand-up. And on top of that, this guy just doesn't give a hoot. No matter who's in front of him, he's going to give it his all. Now, and he has beaten Shogun before. Now, let's move up to Shogun for a little while. Shogun his stand-up is off the charts. Good jiu-jitsu, good wrestling defense. He's good in the clinch. He's not like a straight-up wrestler, but he has good clinch control and wrestling defense. But the thing about Shogun is he is inconsistent. He is inconsistent, as in, when this guy's on fire, he can beat anyone. 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 To the point I would even say he will beat anyone at light heavyweight and heavyweight. That's how good he is. But then, when he's not on his game, then he just gets beaten by anyone. Do you know what I mean? So what do I think? I think he's had a long layoff. Unfortunately for him, the first person he had to fight coming off his layoff is John Bone Jones. But that's how it is when you're the champion. Because when you're the champion, the only people they give you are the best of the best. And you have to take into account his layoff, coming off injuries. John Jones had just fought Ryan Bader, fresh hot. You know, he's been active, young, talented, loads of potential. I mean, you know, the odds were stacked against Shogun. But having said that now, he's had that fight with John Bone Jones, a little bit of hit of reality. He's gone back to his original teacher. He's been in the gym. This Shogun should be ready for Forrest Griffin. Forrest Griffin as well hasn't been that active. However, he's... So in terms of activity, him and Shogun are on the same level. And in terms of Forrest Griffin's comeback, he fought Rich Franklin. And let's keep it real, Rich Franklin isn't an A+ MMA fighter. He's effective, he's decent, but he's not A+. In the context that if you're Forrest Griffin and you've beaten Rich Franklin, it doesn't really mean anything. I didn't even watch the fight. That's how uninterested I was. But I did see parts of the fight, and from what I saw, the fight was actually very close. I mean, it was close enough for Rich Franklin to think that he won. So it was a pretty close fight. So basically, in terms of inactivity and coming over injuries, I think Forrest Griffin and Shogun Rua are in the same place. So none of them can use that as an excuse because, you know, like I said, they're both in the same place in that regard. So in terms of skills and consistency, Forrest Griffin has to have an edge in that because he is more consistent. And forget the fact that he was just disgraced by Anderson Silva, but you know, a lot of people are disgraced by Anderson Silva. But fights before that, he's pretty consistent. However, I'm going to have to go with Shogun with this one. I just think the beating John Jones gave him opened up his eyes. I think he'll be more prepared. I think the layoff was a gigantic factor, but I think Shogun's going to get back in his rhythm. And I think not only is he going to beat Forrest Griffin, but I think anyone that faces Shogun that is not in his league after this fight is not going to make it. So I'm going to have to go with Shogun Rua in this fight. However, I can see the argument for why Forrest Griffin will win, simply because he's more consistent overall than Shogun is. And he already has that win over Shogun. So that confidence that will take his confidence to another level. Plus, that might also play in Shogun's head a little bit. However, I'm going to stick with what I said before. I think Shogun's fight with John Jones has opened up his eyes, and I think he's going to take his training a lot more seriously. And I think, like I said, anyone that is not in his league from henceforth is not going to make it. Okay, the main event. Anderson Silva versus Yushin Okami. Anderson Silva hasn't lost since 2005. And he's been beating people convincingly. And he's been beating tough people. He's not been beating, Vitor Belfort, Dan Henderson. The list goes on and on. Forrest Griffin, I just mentioned. He's knocking these people out. He's submitting them. He's making them look silly. However, his last fight with Chael Sonnen was quite interesting because Chael Sonnen's wrestling gave Anderson a lot of problems. In fact, if Anderson didn't submit Chael Sonnen in the last round, as most of you will know, Chael Sonnen would have won that fight on points. And on top of that, Chael Sonnen could actually hang with him on the feet. Now take that into consideration where Yushin Okami and Chael Sonnen train like they're Ryu and Ken. And Chael Sonnen with his own lips says Yushin Okami gets the better of him in sparring. It says to me that they're literally identical in terms of the kind of problems they can give Anderson Silva. On top of that, Yushin Okami, I think, can even pose a lot more threats because he's actually a big middleweight. So he's basically Chael Sonnen, but even bigger. And there's an element of judo that he brings into the table that Chael doesn't bring. And I think, but then you have to take into consideration that Anderson's says that he fought Chael Sonnen with a broken rib. With a broken rib. And if you think about all the licks, or when I say licks, I mean all the strikings that Chael Sonnen actually had to absorb to, to basically punish Anderson Silva, and then the fact that he was submitted in the last minute, that's really, really impressive. So what does that tell me? That tells me that as talented as Yushi Okami is, really and truly, he doesn't stand a chance against Anderson Silva unless Anderson Silva was lying about the broken rib. If Anderson Silva was lying about the broken rib, Yushi Okami has a really good chance. But if Anderson Silva was telling the truth, Yushi Okami does not stand a chance. It's just that simple. Those are my predictions. As usual, before I end any of my prediction videos or recap videos, I like to leave a scripture. Scripture for this video is going to be Psalms 31 verse 3. And basically this scripture just highlights the perks of having God in your life. And that's just simply the fact that He will guide you, He will protect you, He will be your fortress, He will just, grow you and develop you in all areas. And that's basically it, really. Leave your comments, maybe talk about fights in the undercard that I've not talked about, subscribe, add me as a friend, yeah, all that good stuff. Well, take care, and I hope you enjoy UFC 134. Later.